It's Blissin' Up. I'm your host, Rachel Lang, intuitive astrologer. Get starstruck with inspiring guests and engaging conversations. Blissin' Up starts now. Woo! All right, hi, welcome.
Good morning,
Good
or
morning,
afternoon
John.
at
yes,
this point.
It's morning
Just
for
flipped
some.
over to afternoon.
It did, 1 minute
Yes.
ago. It's amazing what can happen in just a minute.
Right?
Everything changes. And John and I were having a little dance party right before
Right.
the
Well, in sync.
Yeah, he was playing this medley that was really fun. So that got us pumped up. But
Yeah.
we went from a really depressing country
Yeah, country song, right?
Oh.
Merry-go-round.
Oh,
right,
it was
yeah.
so depressing. We were both like, "Oh my god!"
I'm gonna be more conscious of what's playing before we start
the show.
Exactly.
We're both too energetically sensitive.
Exactly.
We were starting down here, and now we're back
up. Yeah,
So,
that's funny.
yeah. So this is an exciting show. I think I say that every show, but I'm really like.
But it is.
This is it's an exciting astrological period,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're in the month of March, and my whole focus for this month is marching forward, because astrologically we have so much going on that suggests that it's a time when all of us are being called to enlightenment, to the expansion of our awareness, of our consciousness, and we're also being called to kind of move together to create social change. And so a lot of the barriers that we have perceived that stand between us are now like shifting, and they're morphing. And so we're realizing that really what stands between us is this huge field of possibility, and this huge field of potential and potentiality, and that we're all in this together. We're all moving together, kind of shifting, going through this shift together. We have some significant astrological happenings this month that will go on into April, and so this is a profound time in our history, in our astrological history. We also have all of these new discoveries that are happening. I mean, if I've been watching. I've been like so excited because there have been so many things trending, astronomically, that I think are anytime there's an astronomical shift or an astronomical discovery or change, it's suggestive and it's symbolic of a bigger shift that's happening within our consciousness. Something is being brought to our awareness at this time, and so that's what's happening. And we're going to talk about those. We've got a black hole. We've got the spacecraft Dawn that has just landed on Ceres, and so we're getting all kinds of new discoveries about the Kuiper Belt, about these asteroids, and about the moons of Saturn and Jupiter. So
and new galaxies that are orbiting the Milky Way.
Yeah,
like rare ones.
and the size of the Milky Way we've discovered is bigger than we expected. So there's so much happening right now, and so what does this mean for you? What does this mean for you in your personal lives? Well, number one, I think it means that you cannot go on the way that you have been going on. There's a lot that's being brought up to the surface that's asking you to shift, asking you to change, asking you to go a little bit deep and discover, what needs to be broken down in your life so that something new can be planted, something new can be reborn. And so, this is a really this week in particular is extremely important, because we're moving out of a really significant a cycle that's been going on since 2012 with Uranus and Pluto in square. We've had several ground crosses. If you're a cardinal sign, a Libra, an Aries, a Cancer, or Capricorn, you have been feeling this the most. If you're sensitive like John, a Pisces, then you've been feeling this too.
Yes.
So what's happening is we have all these new discoveries that are in the media right now, that are in our news, that they're trending on Facebook, they're trending on Twitter, and so we have all these new discoveries. And so what's happening is we're watching one old paradigm close and go away, and we're watching a new one be reborn, and we're all witnessing this, we're all participating in this, we're joined together in this movement, and so it's really exciting, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. I will be taking your calls, I will be taking some questions, if you have anything that you want to offer or contribute, if you want a reading to find out how you can make the most of this time, you feel free to call, feel free to join in the chat. and participate. We welcome all of that. In addition, so I also want to just like take one moment. So that's the show today. I want to take one moment and just draw awareness to the fact that it's Friday the 13th. Again, we had a Friday the 13th episode last month too.
Yes.
So it's interesting because so symbolically, the number 13 is associated with the feminine. The number 12 is a holy, quote unquote, number that represents completion, a cycle of completion. And so it's interesting that we've had two of these Friday the 13th months in a row, because that's kind of what's also taking place astrologically, is that we are closing out cycles. So the number 12 is associated with wholeness, completion, like I said, and the number 13 has been historically seen as a number of change. It's been considered the number of sin. Because it was related to, on Fridays in pagan times, it was the day of the goddess. And it was a day of fertility when people got together and they tried to procreate and they, had goddess rituals that involved, sex and things that then later in patriarchy became sinful. So, and I won't go too far off subject, but I will say that's one of the reasons why the Friday the 13th was considered bad luck. What had come to be considered bad luck because it was associated with all of these goddess related activities, and things that the church said, no, that's not good. So it's the number 13 is really, it's about celebrating your feminine, celebrating your sensuality, celebrating your the awakening of the feminine within, and that's actually very, very significant because it's what we're going to be talking about today, with Ceres, with the new moons, with also the black hole that we've discovered, or I've discovered it. No, but these astronomers in China have discovered. So much of it is about breaking down our dualistic framework, our binary gender constructions, and so much of what's happening astrologically suggests symbolically that it's a time of really restoring balance between the masculine and feminine. So we have, it's quite fortuitous that we're having this conversation today on a Friday the 13th. And so let's just take a moment though, before we get into all of this stuff, before we get juicy, let's take a moment and get starstruck. Yay! And this is the segment where we talk about what's happening astrologically today, what's happening today and throughout this week. And so this week is quite action-packed. It's a very significant astrological week, and it's really like sort of the foundation of some of this astrological influences of that mark social change and mark transformation and revolution. It's all culminating this week. And so if you're feeling this charge, like the energy, like the passion, the excitement, and the something's got to shift, something's got to move, something's got to change, then you're not alone. We're all feeling it. John's nodding his head. He's rolling his eyes. He's like, I'm there. I'm right there. We're gonna play merry-go-round again for John and go down that. Right. No. So today starts out with the moon's in Capricorn. And, and when the moon's in Capricorn, it's a day where we get very determined, very focused. We need to pay attention to what kind of projects are needing completion, what tasks need to be done. It's a day of real focused effort. And so this is especially true for you cardinal signs: Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, and Aries. When the moon's in Capricorn, it's really important to not get stuck we can get so distracted on by focusing on our disappointments and focusing on the things in the past that didn't work out, because Capricorn's ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is the planet of the past. It's the planet of our personal history, and so much of our futures and so much of our present ideas are built on our personal history. And so we have to, when the moon's in Capricorn, we kind of remember back to times when things didn't work out as we had planned, or times when, when bad things happened, but we cannot get distracted by those moving forward. The moon in Capricorn urges us to stay focused on the task at hand. So today, make all those difficult phone calls that you need to make. Have those conversations that you've been procrastinating or that you've been holding off, especially if they're with loved ones or with your family. The other thing that's especially represented today is career focus, career efforts. So, this is a great day for making closing deals. It's a great day for finishing business. Then tomorrow, the planet Saturn, which is the planet of limitation and restriction and control and responsibility, and also commitment and focus, and like we said, it's the planet of the past. It's going to be moving retrograde. And when Saturn moves retrograde, what happens is it kind of steps backwards, and it causes us all, especially if you're a cusper, if you're born on the cusp of Pisces, Virgo, Sagittarius, or Gemini, this is especially going to influence you. So pay attention to what's happening. This is going to be retrograde until the beginning of August, and so what Saturn in retrograde urges us to do is to go inward. Again, all retrograde periods are a turning inward. They're a reflection. They're a stepping backwards so that you can move forward. And so it's a turning inward to discover, determine and discover what structures, because Saturn rules structure, what structures have been in place that you've been relying on that aren't necessarily in your favor. So there's a lot of this self-reflection that's going on for us. And when we talk about structures, we have to realize that our structures are emotional, they're psychological, they're physical. The physical structures in our lives are where do I go for work every day? Where do I live? How is my house? And so you might want to, especially if you are especially if you're one of the mutable signs, you might want to actually look at the physical structure of your house and see, what needs to be attended to. Also, physical health is represented by Saturn as well. Bones, skin, our support system, teeth. Just get all of those checked out. Make sure that things are in top condition. Or if you have any concerns about anything, this is a time to get those all checked out. So this is going to be happening, and that's tomorrow. Then on Sunday, we have a little bit of tension in the morning that opens up into like a lot of fierce activity in the afternoon. It's a great day to get outside. It's a great day to do some gardening and get ready for springtime. Our earth signs in particular, Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn, you're going to love this influence. You're going to love getting out there and tending to some of your plants. Get your hands in the dirt. Then on Monday, the moon moves into Aquarius, which gives us all new insights. We have our mental capacities, our communication is very, very highlighted this day. And that doesn't mean that things are going to be easy, that communication comes easily. But what it means is that it's represented. So it's really important to speak your mind, and to do that in a space of openness. And so not to communicate in a rigid way, but to communicate in an open way. Aquarius is the sign of innovation, and so it asks us what kind of new things are we being urged to invent in our lives and our relationships, to bring things forward, to move things forward, to foster the sense of optimism, the sense of enlightenment, actually. Then this is also a really, really significant day. Monday is huge. It is the day of the final Uranus-Pluto square, and this is going to be happening at 7:53 p.m. here on the Pacific Coast. It'll be a little bit later for those in other parts of the country. And this is what we've been talking about for several weeks. And we'll talk about this a little bit more in the second segment of the show. So the Uranus-Pluto square, it's the planet of revolution and evolution. Those two planets coming together in a challenging configuration. And Pluto is the planet that rules corporations. It's the planet that rules, it rules our psychological makeup. It rules, it's the planet that rules the systems that are in place that are operating beneath the surface. It's the matrix that we're all linked into, that we're all a part of. It is also the planet that rules mass media. So if you think about it in those terms, it's like those hidden, subtle influences that are constantly in operation that we can't always see or pinpoint, but they're affecting us and they're influencing us in subtle and overt ways. And so Pluto and Uranus is all about revolution. It's in the sign of Aries, so it's about personal revolution. It's about what do I need? What do I want? How am I going to break out of this matrix that's been in place? And it's very similar. This influence is very similar to the one that we've had in the 1960s that created so much social revolution and so much change, and that elevated our consciousness to see, to have a new awareness about discrimination and about some of the wrongs that were happening in the world. And so this is, we're getting an opportunity to revisit this and say, did we get it right? And what else is there? What else do we need to pay attention to? And do we need to observe? And so this is a time of a really, of real looking at the systems that you've been a part of, whether culturally, if you've been in a religious system, if you've been in a family system, we are all part of systems. We're all part of structures. And so Monday, we're going to close out this 3-year cycle, this chapter that's been going on, where we've had to kind of break down those systems, and we've all had to sort of have personal revolutions to come to bring voice to certain things that have been wrong or unjust or challenging in our own personal lives. For some of you, you've had significant losses in the last 3 years. For some of you, you've had profound changes, and I've been right there with you. I've been sitting in sessions saying, you can do this, keep on going. Because what I found a lot of times in my sessions and in my work is that the more you go into the darkness of those fears and move to the other side, the more you have the ability to be a voice for good in the world. And every change that you've made has had ripple effects in the lives of your friends, and the lives of your coworkers, and the lives of your family members, and ultimately in the world. You've shifted the planet. So this is a really significant day. Our cardinal signs in particular are going to be giving a huge applause after Monday. Tuesday, Venus enters her own sign of Taurus. Let's see. Oh, I have some questions. How long does the square last? Well, the square itself, I think that we have to look at everything in terms of we're going to feel it like really intensely over the next, up until the 20th, when we have the big eclipse on John's birthday. Mm-hmm. So we're going to be feeling it quite a bit, but the effects of it will last at least another 6 months. Because of other influences that are kind of working with us during that time. So it's going to be Lindsay asked, this is the last of a series that started in 2012. Absolutely. That definitely. And we felt it a little bit before, and we're going to feel it a little bit after, because there's what we call an orb of influence that's still in play. But I think the most important thing for you to kind of take away from this is that the changes that are happening this week are going to be lasting changes. They're going to be changes just like we had in the 60s that carry us into another generation, essentially. So that's a great question. And so getting back to, this week, the Venus is moving into Taurus. It's a great time for our earth signs and for Cancers and Pisces for love. when Venus is in Taurus. It's also a really good time for all of us to be, in relationship, and the nature of our relationships is going to shift, going to change a little bit. Then on Wednesday, we have a really significant Neptunian Piscean influence that's going to bring us all sort of to the depths of our emotional capacities, and we're gonna get in touch with our intuitions. I'm looking at John because John's especially going to be influenced by this. Everything's moving over your sun sign.
I can feel it.
And so it's going to be like the time when our waters, when our emotional waters, the field between us, the field of the waters of our collective consciousness are all sort of spiraling and swirling, and we're kind of bringing up the sludge, and we're clearing it off the surface and purifying ourselves. So that's what's happening this week, and that leads me into, and so that was our Starstruck section.
Yes,
yay! And now we will go into the meat of our show, which is the astrology for social change, of social change. And so again, feel free to make any calls if you have things to contribute, if you have questions to ask. The phone lines are open.
What's interesting, you keep bringing up about the last of a series that started in 2012, because if you go back to 2012, a lot of us were saying this is the end of the world as we know it.
Yes, totally,
right? So
totally.
like the big shift.
Yeah.
And then people were like, wow, what's really changed? Well, actually, we look back in the last 3 years, a lot has really changed.
A lot has changed.
And all these new discoveries. It's really changing the world as we know it.
It is.
So it's very interesting
Definitely.
to see how that's linked up.
I know. And so I want to, that's actually a perfect segue into talking about the black hole.
Yeah, right.
So we have a new quasar that was discovered on February 26th, which was, a pretty significant astrological day. On February 26th, scientists revealed the discovery of a giant supermassive black hole that they're dating back to the dawn of the cosmos and the Big Bang, and it's part of a quasar. It's within a quasar that's 12.8 billion light years away. This I get really geeky. This is like the moment when I my true geekdom comes out.
Right.
So everyone gets to witness it. So it's actually really big because it's literally more massive in size than the galactic center, or than the black hole that we have at 2 degrees Libra. We have black holes symbolically. And if you want more information about this, Philip Sedgwick is an astrologer who is really like the master at deep space astrology is the name of the book, and he's really the one who kind of enlightened a lot of us, or me anyway, to these influences. And Thomas Parsons too, who was a guest on my show several months ago, does a lot of work with black holes and quasars, and so he's really knowledgeable as well. So black holes are like, if you look at them, they it's almost like they look like they're like a gateway into another dimension, and get like a portal. And so that's how I read them symbolically, is black holes are help us, gateways to new dimensions, gateways to new understanding.
Okay.
Now, this one in particular, Philip Sedgwick says, he places it at 24 degrees and 59 minutes of Aries. And here is the coolest thing about this. So the Sabian symbol for 24 to 25 degrees Aries is the possibility for humankind to gain experience at 2 levels of being. And so what I'm seeing right now, and this is kind of how I am interpreting this. Yeah. You can all kind of come up with your own sense of what this means for you. But I'm looking at this as, we have had since the time of Aristotle this whole dualistic framework that everything is divided according to masculine and feminine, darkness and light, earth and spirit and matter, mind, spirit, body. Everything has been classified according to two things, and we see this in language too. We have the romantic languages with every word is genderized, is assigned a gender, and so I'm looking at this. And this is just a creative possibility that I'm exploring, that I have to do a little bit more digging to really see how it plays out. But I'm looking at the discovery of this black hole as being all about breaking down the barriers.
Yeah.
And so it's about intersecting those points that we have seemingly been disconnected. And so that's how I'm reading this black hole. And so I think that we're going to have new insights that are emerging in our collective consciousness that are breaking down some of those boundaries and some of those barriers that we've had to really being spiritual and intellectual, or spiritual and political, or mental and intuitive. We're finding ways to connect all of these sort of disparate parts of ourselves and disparate parts of our culture.
Yeah, and when you said earlier about it being a portal into another dimension. The interesting thing about that is we are shifting from 3D into 4D into 5D. So that could be another reason that's showing up.
Absolutely.
Literally as the gateway for ascension.
Definitely.
Yeah. So
definitely. It's pretty profound. And what's happening this month is that Venus and Mars and the Sun, and Venus, Mars, and Mercury, rather, are all crossing over this point. And so our relationships are getting a little bit of a makeover and a little bit of an adjustment with Venus and Mars. The way that we feel separate, Mars deals with separation. It deals with defense, and it deals with breaking through the separation too, and really being in defense of justice and of truth. But when Mars crosses over this point, it's going to be, this is going to happen on March 24th. So the sun's going to be in Aries already. And so it's going to be, I think a time when it's like we're going to have to come up with some new peace strategies, globally. And then on April 10th, Mercury is going to be moving right over this point. And then on April 14th, the sun is going to be moving right over this point. So it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out. So this discovery was made within the last couple of weeks, and that was exciting. Then also I want to talk about Ceres, because I am enamored. I'm actually going to be, John, I'm going to be speaking about the goddess asteroids at an international astrology conference in Italy this summer.
Wow.
Yeah, in Perugia.
Right. Nice.
So, and one of the things that I'm really interested in is the way in which some of these asteroids have become more a part of our conversation. They were discovered. The Kuiper belt, the asteroid belt, is right between Mars and Jupiter, and it was discovered in the early 1800s. And actually, Ceres was discovered in 1801. It's discovered when the sun was in Capricorn, and Ceres, the way that I read Ceres it's ruled by the goddess of the harvest. The goddess Demeter is connected with Ceres. Ceres is a Roman goddess, and she was discovered by Italian astronomers. I'm pretty sure she was, and so she was she was considered a planet when she was first discovered, and then she was demoted, as our dwarf planets are wont to do, and it's the influence of Ceres is it's linked to and you can look at Ceres in your chart and see how this relates to you. But Ceres is the planet that suggests this is where you're where you're fertile, where things will grow. But I also look at it in terms of, since we are talking about social change, I look at Ceres in a chart to see what is your earthly contribution. There's your destiny, but what is it that you're here to harvest in the hearts of other people? And so when you look at where Ceres is in your chart, then you can get some indication about how you make a difference for the world, and how you what seeds that you need to plant. And so what was discovered this last week was that there's all this water like underneath the surface of Ceres, and that's potentially they're still exploring this, but there were 2 little white spots that they said seemed like they were ice, that there's a whole embedded body of water underneath the surface. And this is very similar to 2 other discoveries that were made with the moons, Jupiter's moon Ganymede, and Enceladus, Saturn's moon, and both have been discovered to have water beneath the surface, entire oceans beneath the surface. And so it's interesting because water is related to that, to the sort of the mysterious, the non-rational, the intuitive, the emotional, the submerged. And so here we have all of this ice being represented in our solar system, and no coincidence that March 22nd is International Water Day. And so we're all like, water is part of our conversation, and water is connected to the feminine. It's connected to the sacred feminine. But also water is connected to, like, when you think about the water molecules, they gravitate toward one another. Like, the water molecules don't separate. They look for ways to connect. And so I think if we look at the astrological significance of this time, what we're seeing is that the old structures, the Uranus-Pluto square, the, all of this like, Mars-focused, the challenges, like, that's all separation. And now the solution is being offered in our cosmic conversation, and it's all about coming together. It's all about intersecting the things, the ideas, the beliefs that we've all had that have kept us apart and kept us different. And so it's realizing that we don't have to be exactly the same, but that we are being urged to relate to one another and see ourselves as a collective body.
And the interesting about water too is it has many forms.
Yes, totally. Yeah.
You've got steam, you've got ice, you've got
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So so there's a lot of this. I think it's always interesting. We have in the chat room, Sharon says water is movement of change. Absolutely, 100%. And it's if you think about water too, water likes to meander. It doesn't like to go in one straight line. It likes to, you see these little babbling brooks. We see the oceans. We see the ways in which water is constantly shifting. It's constantly moving, and it doesn't like to be controlled. When it gets controlled, it builds pollution. It gets, doesn't like to be confined. And so we're, I think that we're also being urged at this time, with Ceres being the goddess of fertility, connected to Virgo. And so Ceres is also connected to, Virgo deals with selfless service. And so Ceres reminds us that when we plant our seeds in service of other people, then our harvest and our crops just expands and builds and grows. So we're taking questions, we're taking calls. If you have questions, if you have thoughts, if you have any kind of if you want a reading, you're welcome to participate. Sharon says, one could think of water as part of one total body of water in resonance with all water. Absolutely. And that's kind of that same message of, how water molecules, they want to bond together.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember this in like high school chemistry class. We took a drop of water and took 2 drops of water, and they like gravitated toward one another. And so that's what we're all, we can all see ourselves as little drops of water gravitating toward the bigger collective whole.
And then our human body is 60%
Yes.
plus
Totally.
of water, and then blood is 92% water.
Really? I
I
didn't
just
know
looked
that.
that up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So that's
So
very important.
so we're all born
Mhm.
with all of this water in our bodies, and water gravitates toward other water, and so we're all born to kind of collect together, to grow together.
Yeah.
And this is so exciting. I'm like, I feel like I just want to I want to dance or something. I'm so excited. The other thing too, is, Raphael says, water conducts electricity that transmits power. Absolutely. And so what's interesting here, Raphael, you bring up a really, really good point. So your Uranus is the planet that rules electricity. And so Uranus has been in our conversation. We've been talking about electricity. We've been, it rules the internet too. It's another way in which we're connected. So electricity, water, these are all things that are being connected. So we're seeing that number one, we can all create the changes necessary to solve some of our energy, the questions about our energy, how we use resources in our environment. Where do we, we're being asked to sort of shift the ideas of, because our planet is in crisis. That's the other thing, is that this is important to pay attention to, because we have real problems in our society that we can't ignore anymore. There's a real sense of urgency here that, our climate is in crisis, and we have this climate chaos. There was 8 feet of snow that was just dumped in a village in Italy that they weren't prepared for it. We have had massive ice storms in places that usually don't see this. We've had heat waves. We have polar ice caps melting. We have serious changes that are affecting the frozen water. So what emotions do we have as a culture that we're not looking at? What kind of wounds do we have that need to be healed?
Yeah. In unrelated news, Frozen 2 has been is in the making. So, it's just, I'm adding a little comedy to that. But if you think about it, Frozen has been on everybody's mind, right? So,
totally, the Ice Queen.
So we've got Frozen 2 coming out. So it's like everyone's talking about, oh, Lord. So, yeah. But Sharon was talking about infants are 99% water when they're born.
Yeah. I was just reading that. I was this shows that 99% water when they're born. Sharon says infants are jellyfish, and they are, if you've ever watched an infant. And what's interesting is that infants, their brains get wired by movement, so they're little jellyfish, but then their motions become more exact the more they move. And then
soaking in the water for so long.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So I think we're all sort of being urged, astrologically at least, to move like that, to kind of move amorphously into this next chapter of our lives, and to feel our way through things. So so it's interesting, in full disclosure, I'm working on my master's thesis right now, my master's degree in theology. And so I'm really looking at a lot of these questions.
Sure.
It's I'm looking at issues of agency and autonomy, and how agency has been built on this. Our moral agency has been structured on this Cartesian paradigm, which is I think, therefore I am. And so it's all about the rational. And my argument, my thesis argument is we've got this whole other non-rational sense of knowledge, this whole non-rational knowing that's more not limited to intuition, but more but linked to intuition, linked to feelings, and so that we're realizing that our agency is built on that too. Okay, Aaron has a question. She says, a friend's marriage recently ended and she's taking a break from dating and wants to heal her old childhood issues. Her career and finances are totally up in the air and need to improve. And she's going off to a 3-day ayahuasca ceremony. Any advice she can take into her ceremony? And then she gives me her birth date, which I'm going to plug into my computer right now. Mm-hmm. That's a great question, Aaron.
Is he Scorpio or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Scorpio in Texas.
Okay, John, talk while I construct this chart.
I'm just looking. And if anybody else has any questions, just let us know in the chat room, or you can call 323-284-7826. Again, 323-284-7826. And if you're just tuning in and missed part of the show, you can always listen on iTunes or Stitcher, or also at blissandup.com.
You are awesome.
Hopefully gave you some time, right?
I love you. Okay. You did. Okay.
Right.
So Aaron, your friend's chart, and so it's interesting. She's over the last 2.5 years, she had Saturn influencing several different points in her chart. And I think that's what led to the dissolution of the marriage. And I would say that that healing is really advisable at this time, and that not diving right into a relationship would be beneficial, just because she's got some influences that are happening right now where she's really being urged to be focused on herself and focused primarily on what it is that she's here to contribute. So her Mercury is Saturn's going to be stationing retrograde within 1 degree of her Mercury. And what that suggests is that she's being asked to really, and her Mercury's in the 11th house, which is the house of community. It's the house of society. It's the house of your goals, your future. It's also the house of your social networks, your friendships. And so I think that this is a time for her to really be bonded with communities, and I would say spiritual communities in particular. That's where she's going to find her source of strength. The ayahuasca, to me, it feels like I really hope she's got a good guide. I hope she has a good shaman with whom she's working, because when Saturn's on right on top of Mercury, and Saturn's also applying, it's applying a trine to her Jupiter. It's applying a trine to it's applying a trine to to her Jupiter. It's sitting right on top of her Mercury. She's going to be going through a real personal transformation, and I think that when Mercury is represented, first of all, we have to look at things in terms of new, like, downloads, like energetic downloads, spiritual downloads, mental downloads. She's going to be getting a lot of insights, a lot of revelations, and I think even maybe some spiritual messengers that are coming into her life. And this is going to be happening over the next 6 months, because of other factors in her chart. Jupiter's going to be sitting right on top of her moon. Up until August, she's got a lot going on. And so I would say that this is not a time for a relationship. If she meets someone, great, but that is primarily going to be anyone coming into her life now is going to foster a sense of expansion and a sense of growth, personal growth. And so it's not a time to hang on to any relationships. It's a time to really just sort of to allow herself to move through.
And what's going on with her Ceres?
With her Ceres, that's a great question. So her Ceres is at 6 degrees Cancer, and her Ceres is right in the 7th house of relationships, actually, and it's right on that cusp. And so in so much of her life, the way that she gives back, the way she contributes, is through relationships. It's through forming strategic partnerships. So I would say if she's got a professional pursuit or a professional endeavor that she's wanting to launch.
Mm-hmm.
She's shown to me in a vision as a pioneer. And so I think that she's being asked to start something, to put her mark on something, and to connect with one other very specific person, very, very strategic person. I would say this is a female. She's being asked to connect with one other person to really bring that to fruition.
Okay.
Thank you for your question. So Sharon asks, there are so we're going back to social change.
Mm-hmm.
And Erin, if you have anything else, please feel free to reach out and ask in the chat. Sharon says, there are those astrological influences that affect or make change possible, but how can one use their own astrology to harness social change? That is a great question.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I actually, Sharon, I have a 5-step process that you can use to do that. And the first one is, first I think become familiar with your chart. Your chart is such a tool to help you that you can use to understand yourself better, and to understand why you're here and what is your destiny. So we have had these blinders on to who we really are, but now it's like, okay, we have this information available.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Understand your chart. Find out what it means. And that means getting a natal reading. That means, there are so many computer programs that you can. There's an app for your phone that you can use just to start opening the door to that information. Then the other thing is observe everything. Everything around you is part of the symbolic language of the divine, and so every single thing in your environment, the divine is using to mediate, so that you can facilitate change in your own life. So especially observe the subtle disturbances that you might feel when you hear about any kind of injustice, or when you hear about police being shot or police shooting others, or when you hear about climate change or some of the ways in which people are messing with our food or messing with our planet. Pay attention to those disturbances. They're messengers. Take an inventory of your skills. Find out what it is that you like. So there's, those things are represented in your chart, but ultimately, like, you have a sense of what gets you fired up, what gets you passionate. Mm-hmm. And Sharon, you talk about this a lot about, Sharon's a friend of mine, and she's the author of Donnie and Ursula Save the World. She was my very first guest talking about social change, and she's got a podcast actually called Passing for Normal that talks about change, and she interviews change agents. So she's kind of an expert at this. But find out what your passion is. Your passion, is it art? Is it music? Mine is astrology. That's my conversation partner. Astrology is how I get into the way that I facilitate social change in my environment, or in my world. Your passion is your platform for change. Then number 4 is, what do you most fear? Whatever it is that you most fear, that is your opportunity. That is your creative opportunity. When you go into that, then you become a change agent. Some of our greatest change agents in the world faced starvation, faced incarceration, they risked their lives. They faced those greatest fears, the fear of death, the fear of alienation, the fear of rejection, and they moved into them, and it was the moving into those fears that allowed them to break them, and then find courage. They found courage right beyond their fears. So that's the other step. And along with that comes that sense of urgency. It comes that sense of passion. Like, I got to do this. There's something that needs to be done. There are suffragettes said we need rights. We need equal rights. The people at Stonewall said, I want to love who I want to love without risk, without being, attacked. And so, then the other thing is, I think that the 5th step in this process is right now at this time. This is a crucial time to do some inventory. Journal, Do one thing each day that connects you to other people, and that fosters a sense of community. And that fosters a sense of connection to the planet too. So if you're planting a seed, if you're calling an old friend, if you're asking for forgiveness, if you're forgiving someone else, do one thing each day and keep a journal or a log of the ways that your life changes as a result. And I would systematize it. I would say, today I did this and this is what happened, you know, and they might be unrelated, but for every cause there is an effect. And so when you're doing one thing to connect with the planet or connect with other people, then you're going to see that ripple effect in your life. So that's a great question. And we have 1 minute left. And so I would say that, you know, that I would urge you, you know, us all, and I include myself in this, to really, you know, spend the next week just really getting in touch with what is your gift. What is your gift? How will you contribute? We started this entire year, we started January with authenticity. And we've built upon that theme, authenticity in self-expression, authenticity in love, and now we're authenticity in using our gifts to affect social change. And so this week, start that practice. And I'm still I will be blogging about this over the next week, so you can follow me at blissandup.com. Our show is ended for today, and next week I'm still working on nailing down my finalizing my guest. I think I have someone really exciting, but I will know for sure in the next couple of days. Okay. So I thank you all for joining us today, and I want to thank especially my creative team, John, of course.
Oh, my pleasure.
You're awesome. Valerie Madden, Michelle Polino, Allie Lang, Deborah Behrens, Robin Kaiser, all of you helped to make this possible. And join us Sunday night, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Love Dome in Venice, California, Venice here. We have a meditation group, so join us then, and we will see you next week.
All righty. Have a good week, everybody.
Bye.